And welcome back to the morning show. And joining us on the phone this morning is Congressional District 2 Representative Yvette Herrell back with us. Good morning. How you doing, ma'am?
I am doing great, and it's good to be back with you again.
Well, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And, of course, we're coming off what sounds like another busy week on Capitol Hill as far as things they're trying to get through Congress right now.
Oh, of course. Here's what people need to know. There's 100 days, 120 days until the election, but we only have about 20 days of actual time in session.
Gotcha.
I mean, this is Nancy Pelosi. She's not going to keep her people here as very often because she wants them out campaigning. But here we are elected to do the people's work. We've got all-time high inflation, all-time high gas prices, a crisis at the border, a president that's flying over to Saudi Arabia to get, ask the prince there to drill more oil when we, of course, have more than enough here.
Yeah.
Selling our reserves, over to China. And yet we're only going to be in session for about 20 more days for the entire rest of this year. Makes no sense, and the American people, and certainly the people of New Mexico, deserve better than this.
I know there's so much to unwrap there, but the whole oil and gas deal right now seems like such a farce to me, because I don't know why people aren't saying this. But yeah, like you said, the president's now over in the other part of the world trying to get gas, get people to pump more gas. And he shut down the pipeline here right before all this went down.
Right.
We have, and then you and I talked about this last time. For the folks that are green and saying, we need to go to ulterior sources and all that, I understand what you're saying, but right now we still need oil and gas just as much as we did yesterday. And
that's right.
The place we could get it from that would be better for everyone, cleaner and more affordable, and put more jobs and money into our economy. The one way to fix all of that is by doing it here, as opposed to go stumping in Saudi Arabia and these other places saying make more oil. And I don't understand why that's not being screamed from the rooftops. It gets so lost in the, it's Russia's fault, it's this fault that the gas prices. I'm like, no, I said this was going on before Russia even walked into Ukraine.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and you're right, but I think people are starting to figure it out. I did a town hall in the district last night, and I tell you what, almost the entire hour-long questions was about energy and why this president is going to Saudi Arabia, and people are understanding the value of having American-made energy, the importance of national security because of our energy independence, which we had just 2 short years ago. Now we don't. And it's frightening. But here's something that you and I've talked about a couple of times, but not everybody's talking about. This energy crisis, and it really is becoming a crisis, is going to be the root cause of what we see in terms of food shortages and scarcity and cost of food going way up. We'll see that probably in the fall and the spring, because you have to understand the normal amount of product that we would see in the ground as far as our farmers go, it's just not there this year. I talked to a seed company who said that their sales for this year are down 40 to 60% from normal. And it's because of the regulation, the high cost of fuel, diesel, pesticides, the commodities market, it's volatile. People just don't know. And then again, supply chain. The truckers getting food to market, lack of workforce. I mean, all of these things, this president should be, if he wants to talk oil and gas, he should be flying his plane right down to, Roswell or Hobbs or, Eddy County, and talking to the folks that are actually drilling the oil and having to be, hamstrung by his policies that are so detrimental. I mean, we've got so many natural resources here. And like you just said, we can produce it cleaner and more affordably than anybody. And if we really want to do it right for the American people, we get our energy independence back. And that's the best thing we can do for our allies and neighbors around the world.
Sure.
Is to be able to produce energy for them. But it's a head scratcher. And this is what's so frustrating, especially from my perspective, looking at all of these challenges that have been brought on by this administration, this one-party rule. And he can fix this stuff. He could secure the border. He could start pushing the price of gas down by simply looking at some of the policies, the packages we've introduced, the permitting, start streamlining that, take away some of the regulations, bringing stability back to the energy market, for these huge investments. Yet he doesn't do any of this. It's America second and everybody else first. And that, I think, is the biggest crime in this entire situation. We seem to have somebody in the Oval Office who cares less about the American people and the consequences of his actions, whether it's signed bills or executive orders, than he does about, his policies and his politics. And that's what's unfortunate about all of this.
Yeah, it is. It's sad. And this is why this year in November is so important. And hopefully people are, like you said, when we kind of started this question, is people are starting to wake up to it. And I hope the more continue to do so. So,
right. I hope they do too, for sure.
I do want to, we were talking just before we actually started interviewing here. I want you to, if you don't mind, explain to the public some of these abortion bills that you're seeing in the House right now that are more than likely going to pass the House here, and just talk about like some of the stuff that they've put in these bills. It's probably going to alarm a lot of people.
It really is. It's sad. And just late last week, this was the Democrat answer for the Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision.
Mm-hmm.
And, there was such an outcry. But here's what's unfortunate. I mean, even people who are pro-choice, identify themselves as being pro-choice, do not favor an abortion in the third trimester, and certainly not on the day of birth.
Yes.
And like you and I've said before, that's more like murder.
That's a human being.
What we should be doing is exactly. And what we should be doing is working with these women, making sure they have the resources, the support groups, the opportunities to make different decisions, especially if they find themselves in an unwanted or unplanned pregnancy. But this is how extreme this is. And these bills passed the House late last week, and this is how it is. One of the bills will actually, it's called Abortion on Demand Until Birth Act, and this will actually legalize abortion up to birth in every single state.
Mm-hmm.
So this is their answer to Roe v. Wade. But here's the sad thing. It puts us in the exact same category as North Korea and China.
Wow.
In terms of extreme abortion laws. That is not what we should be focusing on. It is so sad to me that in the midst of all of these crises, that we're not thinking about ways we can help these women, help with these choices that they have to make, and bring more stability. But these bills did not even have a committee hearing. But here's the other one that's just as bad or worse. It's called Insuring Access for Abortion. But this is what happens with this. It allows people, so if you're a sex trafficker, let's
mm-hmm.
just say,
yeah.
you can now take a 13-year-old girl across state lines for an abortion with no parental notification, or you may have this person you're trafficking so nobody even knows who you are as far as, a sponsor or an adult. But here's the thing. It undermines parental consent
Sure.
for minors, like I'm saying, to travel. But here's the problem. Now, with this bill, if a social worker or school worker or even a doctor or a physician's assistant, they think that there could be some sex trafficking or some drug or some abuse going on here,
mm-hmm.
sexual abuse going on. If those people decide to sound the alarm and say, wait a minute, we have questions about this, they can be in trouble for hindering the abortion process.
Wow.
We have absolutely lost our moral ground on this, and I am just amazed that these bills would get through. And party line votes, in fact, one of them actually had 3 Republicans vote in favor of it, which I'm very sad to know that,
mm-hmm.
because I just think that we need to be thinking, more. I mean, the abortion on demand until birth, it allows for discriminatory abortions, meaning you can get an abortion because you want a girl and your baby you find out's a boy, or if there's any other disability like Down syndrome. I mean, it is so sick that this is the society that we've become,
yeah.
that these are the kind of bills that we're going to pass, and then to put ourselves in the same category as North Korea and China,
yeah.
to me that makes no sense. And I thought America would hold itself to a much higher standard than that, especially when it comes to life.
Yeah. I kind of, and this is, I guess, my opinion, what I think most people think, and this may be wrong or maybe we're spot on, I don't know, but just just what I think. When we talk about this issue and things, I think where most Americans, obviously Republicans pro-life, Democrats pro-choice, that's kind of the generic label to stick here. But
Right.
I think in reality, what many Americans probably say is like, abortion's something I would never do for myself, things like that, that there's other options in my life that I would make sure happen. And so I don't think abortion's a good thing. But at the same time, they don't want it so where a 10-year-old girl that's been raped can't get an abortion. You know what I mean? Where it's like something like that. I think in this country, we can come to a consensus saying, yeah, a person that's in their third or second trimester should not be having abortions. But at the same time, we should not deny a 10-year-old rape victim the ability to get one. You know what I mean? There's got to be some common ground. And I think that's where most Americans lie in their opinion on this. Personally, I think I could be way off, but
I think you're right. And I think one thing that we've always talked about is, exemptions for the health of the mother. There have been some exemptions that have always been in consideration, but, a bill that is so extreme like this ensuring access, it really undermines the health and safety of women by overriding, majority of the states that have determined, the safest way for doctors to prescribe pills for chemical abortion. I mean, it's really eliminating medical supervision, and it puts the women and minors at increased risk, like you're just talking about.
Yeah.
And it's just unfortunate that we would become so extreme, that we would be so upset. And Roe v. Wade, in my opinion, was the right decision in terms of let's let the states decide. Let the state legislative bodies who are closer to the people, who represent the people, make the decisions that work for their state. And instead, over the last 2.5 weeks, we've heard so many things that are so misleading. This is going to now make it where women are going to be jailed, and they're going to, it's all this crazy stuff. And then simply put, all they did was say, you know what, it should be a decision made by the states.
Yeah.
And then whatever state legislative branch, whatever they come up with, that's what goes in their state. But this is so extreme. I think this was the wrong way to answer the call. But here's the truth, Mike. They don't have an answer for the economy, for the inflation, for the high prices at the pump, for the open border, for the supply chain. I could go on and on. They don't have a plan for that.
Yeah.
So this is what they're going to do to try to, appease the base. And I just think this is not the right thing to do at this point in time.
Yeah, that's something I think we the citizen need to educate ourselves better. When we come into scenarios like this, this is political move 101. It's when you don't have an answer to the problem people are thinking about or concerned about, mostly, then they'll say, well, what about this, this, and this? And then they'll get you mad on that, so you won't go back to the person that's actually trying to fix the problem that you really, that's in essence what's going on here is most people are screaming, why is gas prices $5 a gallon? Why is I can't get this, I can't do that? And, we'll fix that, don't worry. But they're going to take away your right to abortion. You know what I mean? That's the move they're doing now, and you've got to get smart about that and understand that's what's going on. And so if you're not happy with the way things are going, I don't care what they're trying to throw at you now. If you want that fixed, you're going to have to change the people that are making the decisions right now.
That's exactly right. I mean, and the sad thing about all this, and I hope it changes in November, there have been so many good bills introduced that have not gotten any traction in Washington. And I want everybody to remember it's because Nancy Pelosi controls what is happening on the House floor. I mean, that's why these two crazy abortion bills went straight to the floor. No committee review, no public hearing, no nothing. I mean, this is not governance, in my opinion. This is not what America is made of. This is not what our Constitution is about. This is not what our government should be doing, to just sneak these things through. And like you say, we've got record high everything, all the costs to the American people. But, by the way, but now you can get an abortion anywhere you want, anytime you want, assuming this gets through the Senate and signed by the president, of course. But it's just a shell game, and instead of taking the bull by the horns, addressing the true problems that every single American is facing, the, crime rates, fentanyl overdoses, and here's what's sad. We don't even hear them talk about the, 10-year-old that was raped the other day by somebody here who was here illegally,
Mm-hmm.
who was not sent back to his country. They don't talk about the 50 people that died in that tractor trailer, a horrendous death. I can't even imagine. We're not going to talk about any of that, and a lot of these, I don't know the exact number. We're working on getting it, but a lot of these overdoses on fentanyl, these aren't drug addicts. These are one-offs. These are teenage kids experimenting with drugs for the first time or going on spring break. I mean, you've seen the news articles.
Sure.
But they're not, every single neighborhood, every single family now is at risk of this entire fentanyl crisis. And we don't talk about it. They don't want to fix that. And it just is, I'm thinking, what happens to America? What are we doing to our country? But I think we've really, I think it's crumbling in the sense that we've lost our moral stability here. And I've said this before, some of these bills that have come through the House have been truly, government versus God. And I just know at the end of the day who's going to win on that one.
Yeah.
But that's what we continue to see over and over and over. And just like these bills. And again, polls show that even the people that think they're pro-life or agree that women should have a choice, they stop short of saying all the way to birth. Third trimester is getting a little tough for some people to agree with, unless sometimes there are those very extreme cases where the health of the mother is at risk. But to just say, hey, if you don't like the sex of your baby, if your baby may have Down syndrome, if it just makes zero sense at all. I think that we've gone such an extreme manner, and hopefully the voters are paying attention and they're seeing what's happening here in Washington and just looking at the moral fabric of our country.
In your opinion, is what's going on now with, like you said, there's 20 some days left in the session here. And like you said, Nancy Pelosi wants her people out on the campaign trail, so they're not going to stay later than need be. Is this all
Correct.
part of the tactics where they do you think in their head they're going to lose the House in November? And
I think
they're trying to get as
concern.
much done between now and then. I mean, is that do you think that's a strategy, or do you think it's something more?
I think there's concern that they know that they're at risk of losing the majority. Just because you can see on news now, a lot of candidates that are running for, say, U.S. Senate seats and so forth are really inching away from President Biden. And now Democrats, by and large, are starting to say, hold on, we don't know if we want this guy running in 2024. So they're certainly starting to put some distance between themselves and the administration. In fact, I know of two Democrat Senate candidates, I think one in Arizona, one in Ohio, that the president came to their state. They were like, we're sorry, got a double booking, can't make your, so they're putting some major distance because they know. But I think they can also see, the polling, the generic polling of what's happening. I think Biden has, a 37% approval rating right now, or maybe it's 38. It might have ticked up just a little bit. But, that's people are watching this, but what's hurting more than anything is the reality of what we live with every day, with the high cost of you name it, and it's a high cost attached to it now. And this is by and large because of their policies. The blame game's not working. People have caught on that these things started happening way before, like you said, Putin. It was COVID, it was Putin, it was Trump, it was, the oil producers. Well, then now it's the gas station owners. It's everybody's fault but President Biden. And simply all he has to do is engage with our energy producers. And again, even the environmentalists should be looking at this thinking, why would we have a country who has no regulatory, environmental regulations in play? Why would we ask them to produce more than, none of this makes sense. And you've got, I think, a pretty small group of people with the loudest voices that are just trying to drive the train. But the reality is starting to really seep into those that are living it, paying for it. And as we saw a small little downturn in the price of fuel, but economists and reports that I'm seeing here in D.C. are saying that that's going to tick back up. I had, in fact, on the call last night, people were very angry and upset that this president is selling oil from our strategic oil reserve to China.
Yeah.
That just, people are angry about it.
For votes, basically.
To catch on.
For votes, basically.
Exactly. And so I think that we should be having to answer tough questions. I think there should be more transparency. I think this administration should be held accountable. And by the way, like, nobody's talking about Afghanistan, and we still have Americans that are not all the way out of there yet. That was still a crisis, but we look weak on a national, global scale. We just don't have the leadership that I think it takes to run this country in a way that keeps us in a position of being able to, deliberately bargain and look at trade agreements and push for a global economy and push our GDP up and really send that message of dominance. And we've always been a country of giving, we're just such a great country when it comes to humanitarian and everything else, but we're letting it all slide by the wayside. I mean, how is it that we'll let over 2 million people into this country illegally by the end of this fiscal year? It makes zero sense.
Yeah.
And the cost. And here's something I want to bring up that I heard this just late last week. The man camps, some of them over in West Texas for the oil and gas operations. I just saw a report last Friday that said that DHS is now wanting to rent those for $700 a night.
Oh, wow.
For immigrants.
So they're going to get some more, they're going to start putting them there. Now, are those man camps full already or full of, oil workers? Or that's going to be an interesting mix.
That's it. I mean, they're for the oil workers. And of course, we have those down in the southeastern part of the state.
Yeah.
And there was some concern early last year about turning those man camps into migrant camps. But I mean, this is where people need to understand, when we hear that kind of a price, $700 a night, it was on Fox News Friday morning.
Yeah.
That's our money. That's your money.
You're
That's
right.
my money. And all this inflation is a tax on the American people. That's all it is. And in fact, an example that most people can kind of track with is, I don't know the exact number, like 8.2%. That is essentially 1/12 of your income. And now, with the inflation being over 9%, we're actually working 1 month for free. So any income that you would make for one whole month in your years-long employment is absolutely for naught because of the inflation, the cost of goods, services, fuel, everything.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
It is very crazy.
So when you think about it, in fact, when I heard that this morning, I was at a meeting with Leader McCarthy and some others, and when I heard that, my first thought was, well, heck, then we should be getting a little bit of a tax break if we're going to be working for free for 1 month. But I mean, so it's crazy what is happening up here, and I'm just hopeful that people are paying attention, because right now it's not about Republican or Democrat, red or white. It's red, white, and blue. It's this country that's at stake. It's our national security. It's the way we navigate over the next number of months, and hopefully we do need to take the majority so that when we can act as a backstop for some of these policies. For instance, these abortion bills would never have been brought up if the Republicans had the majority, but what would be being brought up is, let's bring some stability to our marketplaces. Let's get the supply chain moving. Let's drive the cost of fuel down. Let's ensure that we don't run into food shortages next year. Let's get our energy independence going, because the demand for energy, and you and I talked about it, it's not going away.
Nope.
And we need our fossil fuels and our minerals in order to get to the place they want to be in terms of all green.
Yeah. And
go ahead.
I was saying, I hate to burst everyone's bubbles, but we're not there electrically yet to replace oil and gas. It's not even remotely close. And until that's even in the conversation, you can't talk about scaling back oil and gas.
Well, and here's what I think people might start, some people, not all, because it's, but back in like the late 70s, 80s, Europe wanted to try to go all green and try this new stuff. Well, it backfired. And the cost of their energy portfolio just went through the roof. Mm-hmm. And the very people they were trying to help and do all this new green and all this different stuff, it actually backfired and cost their people more. So energy prices, of course, went through the roof. That's exactly what's happening here. And even everybody will tell you, we're just not there yet. I mean, the technology is not there. And the infrastructure, we just don't even have the infrastructure. But if we're going to be talking about it and developing it, I also think then part of that dialogue should be disposal.
Yeah,
If we're going to have lithium batteries, if we're going
exactly.
to have these windmills, if we're going to do all this stuff, then let's not just create problems for people to deal with 30 years from now,
Sure.
20 years from now. Let's talk about the disposal plan as we move through this development of green energy. And you and I both know, I'm all of the above,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm also a realist in terms of what we use our fossil fuels for every single day.
I'm going to give a piece of advice to green people, just real quick. We are in capitalism. Embrace that as a capitalist. If you're a green person, capitalism is your friend. You want to be more green? Start investing and getting and promoting businesses financially and otherwise that go in that direction. And that's how the market changes. When you've got
That's
competition and there's companies creating technology and they're competing against each other, you're going to find out that innovation and all that stuff's going to happen a lot quicker. And so if you really want to speed society into going green, then you need to invest in those areas as a private citizen and support. You got Tesla. Well, if you have 12 Teslas, then guess what? The Teslas are going to compete against each other to make a better Tesla for you. And the technology gets better, everything's better. And that's how it works in a capitalist society. If you want better, then you invest that money into those and make it more affordable and better to drive your car full of electricity instead of gas. And that's how it's going to succeed. Until people realize that, we're going to keep doing what we're doing,
Right. Just keep spinning our wheels. And I would submit to you that the technology and the development and research that's coming out of our energy sector, incredible, and they continue to develop and create cleaner fuels and less carbons. And, it's incredible, the science behind this. So it's not as if you've got industries that are just, we don't care about the environment, we're going to pollute. They're not. In fact,
right.
We've cut our carbon emissions less than, it just, nobody wants to talk the facts. They just want to vilify and weaponize these industries that are vital to everybody. But I haven't, it's just like in New Mexico, you saw the article the other day, the oil and gas, is putting so much money into the coffers this year. It's just crazy. But I don't hear one person in Santa Fe saying, well, I'm not going to spend it. That's dirty money.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
We're not going to use it.
I'll take
Nobody's
it.
saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure those producers and the folks down in Eddy and Lee and Chavez County would love to keep those dollars down in their own counties.
Absolutely. Well, I know. I think I need to let you go. I know you've got. I think you got more votes and stuff this afternoon, or.
No, we're done. We got done with votes.
Oh, good.
So it's just, so it's always that's exactly right. When we're not on the floor, you're safe. But it'll be curious to see what they come up with next, because it's just sound the alarm, knee-jerk reactions, trying to appease the base without actually really coming up with any real solutions that work for the American people. And we just got to keep pressing in and expose the crazy policies that are impacting our day-to-day lives, and most importantly, the children's lives, our future's lives, and our pocketbooks.
Yep, absolutely. That's why November's so important. So
that's right.
Well, thank you as always for the visit. We do appreciate it, and we look forward to our next one. One of these days, we're going to come in and be like, guess what? We made a victory here, but hopefully before November, but I'm not very optimistic.
I hope you're right, for sure. But with Nancy Pelosi having the control over everything that happens on the House floor, I mean, here's the thing. She's running for re-election. She probably wins. But if the Republicans take the majority, I believe, and I'm pretty sure she will retire. And if that doesn't motivate you to want to get out and vote, I don't know what would.
Absolutely.
We've got to fire Nancy Pelosi. We've got to bring some sense back to common, which would be common sense. But we have got to have somebody in leadership that understands just how bad these policies are hurting the American people, and start working for those who trusted us enough to be there. And I'm just so grateful to be that voice for the 2nd Congressional District. And I would love to keep doing that, just ensuring that we're talking oil and gas and border and the things that matter to New Mexico.
Yes. Get us back to some balance. We do appreciate it.
You bet.
Well, thank you for what you're doing. I know it feels like you're fighting against a wall against you every day in Congress, I'm sure, but we do appreciate you representing the people of Southeast New Mexico. We do appreciate that. Or all of South
Well,
New Mexico, actually. I didn't give you enough credit. More of
Well, it's just New Mexico, and I'm happy to do it and feel so honored and blessed to be there. And I just thank you for the opportunity to visit like this, because people need to hear the truth of what's happening in Washington.
Yeah. There's so much going on that once you hear all the details, you probably, I think once people hear all the details about everything that goes on, I think we'll find that more of us are in agreement than disagreement. I think.
That's right.
I think if people truly saw everything,
I agree with that. I actually believe that, forget the party, I think people in general just have more things that they are concerned about as a whole, whether it's pricing or whether it's their business, small business, workforce, a lack of workforce, the cost of doing business. I think there are more commonalities, concern for drugs or the uptick in crime or even the education system. These are all things that I don't think you label that, Democrat or Republican. I think these are concerns that I think we can all find that we have in common. And when we have that going for us, then solutions should come more easily. But up here, it's just so divisive that there's no traction, no appetite to come together on some of these issues.
Yep. America first. That's the mindset we all
That's right.
need. Yep.
That's right.
Thank you, ma'am, as always. And we'll talk to you next time. Okay.
Sounds great. Okay. You have a great